Hey guys, welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to be building a follower system in Django. So just like on the popular social media website where we have a feature in which a user can follow a user and also unfollow that user later if he decides to. And you can also see the amount of followers and following of that particular user. So we're going to be building this in our Django project today. And let me just quickly show you what we're going to be building before we get into it. So I'm logged in as this user with a username of admin, and I'm on the profile page of this Tommy. So as you can see, I'm following Tommy right here already. And if I hit unfollow, you see that this number drops to 0 and the button changes to follow. So I can also follow the user back, the number increases and the button changes to unfollow. So if I refresh this page, that's still valid, and this is because all the data that is being created here or deleted here is being saved in our database. If I come back here now and I come to followers count, you see I have one object right here in this follower count model right here. So if I come here and unfollow this user and I hit refresh, you see that I don't have any object there again because now I'm not following this user, so there's no data in our database that is saved. So if I hit follow and I come back here and hit refresh, I have one object saying that this user admin is following Tommy. So this is the follower and this is the user this person is following. So those are just the two details we're going to be collecting. And yeah, so let's dive straight into the video. So let me quickly walk you through what I've already done in this project. So I created a new project and I named it Django Follow. And what I did was I created a new model which is named followers count, and I gave it two attributes. The first one is follower and the second one is user. So for this follower, this is me who want to follow a user, and this is the user which is being followed. So this is the person following and this is the person being followed. And what I did was I registered it in the admin. I just came to my admin.py, imported the particular model, and I registered it in my admin panel. So that's why I can access it right here. So when I come here, I can see that I have followers count model right here. And I already took care of all the authentication. If I come into my views.py file, you see I have all these views. This is just basically taking care of the authentication. This is for the register view, this is for the login view, and this is for the logout view. So all this is just basically taking care of the authentication so user can sign in, sign up, and all those cool stuff before we get started with the video. So right now I also have some URLs for the normal home URL, the register, login, and logout. And in the views, I also just created an index view and I render this index.html template right here. I also have the login and sign up template. We might talk about that, we might not. So right here, I am already logged in as a user admin, so I can log out right here. And once I hit log out, I can just hit submit with these details and login. If I want to sign up, I can come here and register a new user, but I'm not going to do that. So let me just hit submit and log back in. And the reason why I'm doing that is because this admin is basically the admin user, so I'm going to be able to access the main site and also access the admin panel, because if I log in as a normal user, I'm not going to be able to access the admin panel. So that's why I did that. So now let's dive straight into doing the main coding. So right here, since we already have the follow model created, which is right here, what I just want to do now is to first of all create a new view, and I want to name that view followers underscore count, and it's gonna take a request 1t, and for now let's pass. And since I have this view already, what I just want to do is to copy this. So let's make sure we have that correctly. And then in the URLs, I just want to create a new URL for that particular view. So I can say this, and now I can say views dot followers count, and I can also give it a name of followers count. Let me make sure I have that comma right there. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I want it that once a user clicks on follow, it's going to take some particular parameters to this URL which I just created, which is followers count. So you're going to see what I'm talking about when we dive deeper into this tutorial. So right now, what I just want to do, let's come back to the code. Okay, we're actually in the code. So right here, I already created this URL for followers count. Now let's just go into the index.html and create the form that we need. So the first thing we want to do, this button class right here, I want it to be in a form. So I can just do form, and I can take all this. I can paste it in here. Let's just give that the right indentation. Good. So this is in a form right now, and I want this to be like the submit button. So I'm going to give it a type of submit, and I want this form to go to action to to this particular URL, followers count. In the index, I'm just giving you action of followers count, and then I'm going to give it a method of post. And this post is just to secure this particular operation of form submission, so we don't have someone just trying to follow a user directly from just manipulating the URL. So whenever we're using a post method in Django, we must make sure we have our CSRF token defined. So since we have that out of the way, now this is in a form, this button, and we want some values. The values we want to collect is the user that is following, the user that he or she wants to follow, and yeah, I think those are the values we want to collect. So let's quickly do that. So first of all, let's have an input type. Now this type, I want it to be hidden, and what I want to say is, let's give it a name, and we can give this one a name of user. So this is the user that wants to follow another user, and let's give it a current value. Let's leave it blank, and let's set it to read only. Also gonna do the same thing. Let's just copy this particular one, but this name, I want it to be the follower. And now this follower is the current logged in user. So user.username. So what I'm doing right here is, this is the person I want to follow, and this is the person that is following someone. So this is me who is logged in, and this is the person I want to follow. So I'm going to get the person I want to follow in a bit. But first of all, we already have the person which is following, and let's just save that since we already have that. So what I can do now to get this value of the person I want to follow, I'm going to come into my views. So I'm going to have a variable. Now this variable is going to be for the current user that I am viewing. So something like, let me quickly go back. So we can use like a dynamic URL and do like slash, and then we can just give it a name of team or something like that. But we're just keeping this very simple. Let's just have slash. I'm using a get, and we can say user goes to like Tommy. And yeah, so since we have this user pass, this is the link to the particular profile of Tommy. We can change his user now to something like Yeti, and then that's the user for Yeti. So but let's just stick it with that. And so what that is gonna do now, since we have that, we can get the current user that is being viewed. So let's quickly go back to our code, and we can say current underscore user, and we can say equals to request dot get. This time we use the normal bracket user. Let's make sure we have dot here. So what we're doing now is we're getting the current user from the URL. So this URL, using the key user, we're getting the value of that URL to know the user, and then we're storing it in a variable called current user. And also after having this, we also want to have the logged in user. Logged in user, that's the current user that is logged in. So we can also request the user, the username. So let's just keep that for now. We're gonna need it later. So now let's just pass this current user to the HTML so we can access it there. What we just want to do is to say current user is equals to current user. So now let's come into index, and right here now we can just easily use current user as the value. So since we have all of this now, we have the current user, we have the login user, and then we have the submit button. I think we are fine to go ahead and come into these views. So since, let's come back here. So now if we hit follow, it's sending some particular data to this follow underscore count, but nothing is happening in this follow count view. That's why it's giving us this value error for now. But let's go back to our code and do something. So now we don't want it to be passed anymore. The first thing we want to check is if a post method is coming in. So we'll say if request.method equals to post. And what we want to do is to get, if the request.method, that means if the method that is being used to access this page is a post method, then we want to do a particular thing. So we might want to get the values of whatever is being sent into this page. So the first thing I want to get is the value. So what I mean by the value, first of all, let's come here and let's give a name of value. So we want to know whether the person is following or the person is unfollowing. So for that, we need to have like a value in the form right here. So for us to do this, what we're just gonna do is to say, let's have another input. So right here, and then the name, let's give it value, and the value of this is gonna be follow, and it's also gonna be read only, just like the others. So let's save it right now and come back here, and now this value can be equals to request.post value. So since we have the value, we now know if it's following or the user wants to unfollow. We can now do whatever we want to do. So once we have the value, let's also get the user, that's the person that is being followed. So request.post user, and then we should also get the follower, that's the person that is following. Just to request.post follower, and all these we're getting is from the index.html, the names in which we used, which is user, follower, and value. That's it right here, user, follower, and value. So that's what we're using to get all these parameters. So now that we have all these values right here, we can go ahead and say if the value, the variable name value, is equals to follow, and that means the user wants to follow the other user. What we can just do now is to access this model. So first of all, let's import this followers count model up here, and let's just say from .models import followers count. So now that we have that, what we can just do now is to say like follower, let's do like cnt, just to change the variable name, because to followers count dot, now I want to create an object. So dot object dot create equals to, no, not equals to, want to use brackets. I will say follower equals to follower, and the user equals to the user. So now that we have that, we can just say follower count dot save, follower cnt dot save. Or what we can just do So let's first of all leave this like this, and let's save it and let's go see. If we come into our browser right here, let's refresh this page and let's refresh this. So we can see we don't have any object here. If we hit follow, so it gives us an error that is not responding anything, and it's not returning any response. But let's first come in and see if an object was created. That's what we want. So we can see that an object was created. Good. So since the error that this is giving us is that it's not getting any response, let's just give it a response. Let's return back to the home page. So what we can just do, we can say after doing all of these, we can just return redirect the user slash user equals to. So we can just concatenate, and want to concatenate it with this user because this is the person that is being followed. So that's the profile that is viewed. So first of all, let's go back and see. Let's delete this. Well, we're going to take care of this. First of all, let's come back here. If I hit follow, okay, now it says user equals none, so nothing is gonna. Let's just make sure we have Tommy, and then we hit follow. So now that is done. But if I come here and I refresh, you see that multiple were created. So we're going to take care of this, in which if a user has followed before and he hits follow, it shouldn't create a multiple one. It shouldn't create another one. So if a user has followed before, it shouldn't even have the follow button again. It should now have an unfollow button. So we're going to do that. So first of all, let's click on everything, delete those that we don't need. Yes, and good. So now that we have this, what we just want to do is to show the follower count. Now that we can follow a user, let's show how many followers the particular user has. So for us to do this, we're going to have to come into our index view right here. And since we already have the current user and the login user, and we have already imported the models, then this should be easy. So we can just do something like user followers equals to len. So before we say len, let me first show you what we're going to do. We're going to do followers count dot object dot filter. So we want to filter with the object in which the user is equals to the current user. So what we're doing is we're coming into this database here, and then we're looking for a list of all the objects in which the user, that means the person that is being followed, is the current user. So if the person that is being followed is followed by 5 different people, then we're going to have 5 different objects here, and then we're going to calculate the length of that data of that list that is being returned. And what we're just going to do is to show it here instead of x. So let's do that to complete what we were doing. So like this, what I can just do, cut this off and put length just to get the length of it. And yes, so now we're going to have the length, and we also want to do exactly the same thing for the following. So what we can just do, let's copy and paste this, but now I want to change this to following, user following, and then followers count the object of filter. But now we want to get when the user is a follower, not when the user is being followed. So if the user is a follower and is equal to this current user, let's have that. So now that we have that, let's first of all do something like just printing it. Let's print user followers, so see what we are getting, and then let's come here and hit refresh. And if you come to our command prompt, which is running, we can see we have one, and that one follower is this admin, which is following this user Tommy. So what we want to do now is just come here. So another thing I want us to do, you can see that here is showing test user. Instead of that, I want is the user that is being viewed that should show. So that's very easy. Now that we have this logged in user, not the login user, we want the current user, and we already have it passed in there. we can just come into index, and where we have test user, let's copy the current user and just basically change that's very easy. And if we get back there and hit refresh, let's wait for that to reload, we should see it tell me. So let's make sure our server is up and running. Okay, that's taking a surprisingly long time. So as that is doing, let's just get back to our code. So what we want to do right now is to get the list of that value. So what I'm just gonna do, let's quickly get down here and just send all of this data into the index. So let's cut all of these, open it down just to keep it clean. And let's have another one saying user followers. Let's pass it with this, and then let's also pass the user following. And let's pass it with this. So now we can save that. And once we come here now, if I scroll down, instead of the following now, I can just say user following, and instead of this, I can say user followers. If I save that and come back to our project, let's hit refresh. That's still running. That's weird. Now let's just open a new tab and open our project right there. Okay, I guess the server is not strong as before, so let's try to break out of this. Yes, that's weird. So that should cut out in a second. Let's quit this right here, come back here, that should be out. Good. So now let's do python-py run server again, and our server should be running fine. So let's hit refresh, and that was good and quick. So now you can see that we have this Tommy, and you can see that the followers is 1 because this Tommy has 1 follower. If I scroll to admin instead of Tommy, so let me go to this my own profile, we see that I have 1 following and 0 followers. That's because I am following that guy named Tommy. If I come back, you can see that 0 following, 1 follower. So we've been able to conquer and do that feature for getting the followers count and following count. Next thing we want to do now is to just get the whether the user is following or not. So we'll be able to change this to whether follow or unfollow. So let's do that. Let's come back to our code, and if we use the py file, we want to get something. So what we want to get first of all is the list of all the followers of this particular current user. So to do that, let's just say user followers, and then we can just say like 0, bad naming, but let's leave it like that. And we can say followers count dot objects dot filter user equals to current user. So we're filtering with the list with the object in which the user is equals to this current user that is being viewed. So since we have that, we're actually going to have to use a for loop to get all of that data in a list, so we'll know whether this particular user is part of that list. So let's first do something like user followers 1. And we're just having that as an empty list because we're going to append to that list later. Let me leave that space to keep it clean. And let's say for I in user follower 0, which is this one we got initially, you can say user follower 0 goes to I dot follower. We're just getting the value of all the followers, and then we can say user follower 1 now dot append all the value of the user follower 0. Now I hope you understand what I'm talking about in this video, in this part. So what I just did, let me explain right from here. So I created a new variable users followers 0. Now don't mind the 0 or the variable name. That was just because that's just a bad naming, but let's leave it like that. So user follower 0 is to get a list of all the particular followers for the current viewed user. So current viewed user is this particular user here, which is Tommy. So we want to get a list of all the followers, and for that we have to iterate through this followers count model, and we have to filter with the one in which the user is set to this current user, which is Tommy. So remember, in our models, the user is the person that is being followed. So that means how many people is following the current user. So once we have a list of that, it's gonna give us in like a query set or just like the object name. But once we get the actual value, so we'll know if this admin, which is a currently logged in user, is part of the followers or is part of the list of followers of that particular user. So for us to do that, we first of all have to initialize an empty list, and then we have to use the for loop to loop through all the values we got from this user follower 0, and then we said user follower 0 equals to I.follower. Once we loop through all the values of this user follower 0, we got only the followers tab. That's just for the people that are following, and then we appended every single thing into this user followers 1. So basically this user followers 1 now has a list of all the followers of the currently viewed user. So since we have that, what we just want to do now, we'll say if the logged in user is in the user follower 1. So what this is doing is that if the logged in user, that means the currently authenticated user, which is the admin in this case, is part of this user followers 1, that means it's part of the list of the followers of the currently logged in user, then let's have a new variable like follow button value, and let it be unfollow. So if the person is already part of it, we just want the person to unfollow. Else, that means if the person is not part, let's initialize that same variable follow button value. But now let it be follow, because this simply means that the user has not yet followed this particular user. What I want to do now is to just pass this follow button value into our index.html. So once I have passed it in our index.html, we can now go into our index.html and make some changes right there. So what we can just do now, let's go to index.html. If I scroll up right here, so what I want to do first of all, in this particular form right here where we have button, I want to say if I'm going to use the Django templating. So the if statement, I'll say if the value of what we just collected, that means if the follow button value is equals to follow, that means the current user has not yet started following the user, then we want to show this follow button. Else, that means the user is already following. We can just copy this and get an indentation right, but now we want to say unfollow because the user is already following that particular person. And let's go ahead and end our if statement. So now that we have this, one more thing we need is first of all the value, but let's first check this. I'm going to explain what I just said in a minute. So as you can see, this value has changed to unfollow because I'm part of the followers of the user. But now if I click on unfollow, nothing happens. It even increases, as I said, that it creates a new object when we don't want that to happen. When I click on unfollow, it increases the follower count because it's allowing me to follow the user again and again. So let's refresh this page first of all, delete those. So once we have those deleted, we're going to come back, take care of this. Well, we have one follower back. So now that we can know whether to follow or unfollow, we have to now pass this particular value into our views.py, so we will know whether, let me show you in these views. If you come down here, you can see right here we are getting follower, we're getting the value right here, value equals request.post value, and that value, if I come here, is what is showing, and it's showing follow. So that value is showing follow, and we are saying if the value is equals to follow, then we're basically just creating a new object. And that's why when we hit follow, because that value of the HTML, it might show unfollow here, but the value of the HTML tag is still follow, keeps creating that new object over and over again. So what we can just do now, where we see this value, let's cut that line and then let's paste it in here. So right now, that value is only, that follow value is only available when the button value is equals to follow from the views. And then let's come here and paste. And now when we want the user to unfollow, right here, no, we just want to cancel that thing. So when we want the user to unfollow, we want this value to be unfollow. So now if I come back here and hit refresh, and once I hit unfollow, you see that this doesn't increase. That's because it didn't create a new instance. And now, as I explained earlier, that's because the value that is being passed now is called unfollow, not follow. But nothing is happening. We want this value to decrease, and we want this object to be deleted from here. Nothing is happening because we've not configured anything or set anything in our backend, in our views. Let's go ahead and do that and use an if statement. So right here now, so we're saying if the value is equals to follow, we want to create a new object. But what if the value is not equals to follow? We can say else if or anything, but let's just say else. What we just want to do now is followers can't. So we're basically just doing the same thing. Let me copy all of these. But first of all, these have to be slightly different. What we're doing now is getting just one object. So we're just getting the object in which, let's scroll up, the follower. So what we want to do now is to get just one object in which the person that is currently following is following the person that is being viewed, if you get what I'm saying. So what we have to do now to say follower.object.get, the one in which the follower is equals to follower and the user is equals to user. So that is correct. And once we have that, we're just going to say, close that real quick. We're just going to say follower count right here dot delete. So since we can now delete that, let's just keep this clean by adding a line. Let's go back to our page and hit refresh. And if I hit unfollow, you see that now this value decreases and this changes to follow. And if I come back here and hit refresh, that particular object was deleted. If I come here again and hit follow, that exact same thing happened. So this is what we have built in this video. We just implemented the followers following system that is used the most popular website in our Django project. So let's also try this with another user, because we've been logged in as the admin, and let's try to log out and let's sign up for a new user. And let's just say something like Jim and jim@g.co. Let's give him a password and hit submit. Now let's log in as Jim. Let's save that part. So it says invalid credentials. Let's make sure that is correct. It says invalid credential, guys. I'm sure I messed something up. But if I come to our users, we have, okay, now I'm logged out of the user because I'm not an admin user right now. So what I just want to do, I guess I have to sign up again, but this time around let me use something like team. So I have team twice, so I won't forget. At g.co, I set the password, submit. Now let's try to log in again, submit. Now we should be logged in. Good. So now we logged in. It says none. So if you want to take like this project further, you can just automatically add some advanced stuff, like once it logs in, take the user to his own profile or take it to the dashboard or whatever you want to do. For now it says no, let's just manually add that equals Tommy. So it's saying this Tommy user has 1 followers, but for me, because I'm a new account and I have not followed this Tommy, it shows me to follow. So if I hit follow right now, you can see that I have 2 followers, and I would have come here to check, but I'm not logging as the admin, so I can't do that. So right here I have 2 followers, and I can hit unfollow again. I have 1 follower. I have 2 followers. So this is what we built in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed building it with me, and thank you so much for watching. And if you liked it, please don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.